Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Acupuncture is My Life. Now, in this episode, I'd like to discuss a particular topic on which I'd had an interesting conversation with someone from the Netherlands about. And she was interested in knowing what can cause heart failure and how can acupuncture help. And you see, I think that's so awesome, and this is why I say I recommend so many times download the Acupuncture is My Life app. It's at your app store, Google Play Store. It's free. So much information on there that you can benefit from, and you can ask questions, and someone from Acupuncture is My Life will get back to you regarding any disorder you may be concerned about and would like to know if you can benefit from acupuncture. So download the app. But heart failure, understand something. This is something that most individuals do not think about. And when I say most individuals, I'm talking globally. Many individuals aren't walking around thinking as to if their heart is going to fail or not until like it happens to them or someone close to them. And when that is the case, many individuals become alarmed. They become really nervous about it. Understand something. Heart failure doesn't happen all at once where your heart just stops. It's a slow developing process where over time your heart is not working as efficiently as it should. And guess what? This happens to close to 1 billion people globally. Okay? And there are many individuals that, like I said, they'll think that their heart would just stop working. That's what heart failure is, all at once, and it's not the case. You have to understand, your heart has the responsibility of pumping nutrients and oxygen on a constant basis to all of your organs. And when your heart cannot keep up with the demands of doing that, that's a sign that your heart is beginning to fail. And when your heart begins to fail, the rest of your body begins to fail as well. And it's important that you understand that. And heart failure can begin on, and as well as include, either the right side of your heart or the left side or both sides. You know, when it happens on the left side, there's problems with the left ventricle, and that's the heart muscle's main pumping chamber. And there are two types of heart failure that affects the left side. One is the systolic heart failure, which basically means that your left ventricle is not pushing blood out too well. And then there's diastolic heart failure, where the heart, that area of the heart becomes stiff. It can't relax and fill up with blood enough in between beats. And when blood cannot pump out of the heart or into the heart effectively, heart congestion can happen. And this is usually known as congestive heart failure. Now, when it comes to the right side of the heart, there's usually right-sided heart failure as a result of left-sided heart So when both sides, left and right, are now affected, this is called biventricular heart failure. Now, right-sided heart failure, it can happen on its own when you have a condition that generally affects your lungs, more in line, let's say, with COPD. And this is why, oh my goodness, it benefits you to see an acupuncturist. Here at the Acupuncture is My Life Clinic in New York City, we see so many individuals affected with COPD. I say this over and over, along with seeing a physician on an annual basis for regular checkups, visiting an acupuncturist for regular wellness visits throughout the year will take a lot of concern off your shoulders when it comes to your health. Because there's certain symptoms that when your heart is getting weaker, many individuals can experience, such as, let's say, you know of anyone that experiences, let's say, swelling of the abdomen or ankles or legs or feet? This is usually as a result of poor circulation that causes water and other fluids to build up in those areas of the body. And then you can also experience, let's say, excessive coughing or wheezing. And this is a sign that fluid can be building up in the lungs. And this usually happens when a person's heart doesn't contract properly, causing them to have coughing fits. Another is, have you ever experienced shortness of breath? Where you're just really like breathing really hard to take in air and let air out. Just from simply walking or doing something, whereas in the past, it wouldn't cause that. Now, that can be a sign of fluid building up in your lungs, or a lack of oxygen-filled blood. Do you experience general fatigue? Where some of the more basic things you were able to do no problem and still have energy. It's tough for you to do it now, and you feel tired a lot. But understand something, heart failure can affect different parts of a person's heart, so symptoms are going to vary. Because there are individuals who may not experience symptoms at all. And heart failure happens or can happen in various stages. So symptoms can change or worsen over time. So this is really, really serious. And again, it's why I say see an acupuncturist for regular wellness visits. Because heart failure can basically happen. It can occur at any point where a person's heart is severely strained or damaged. And it's important that you're aware of that. Let's take, for instance, let's say coronary artery disease, right? Now, this is the most common form of heart disease, which usually happens, as a result of high cholesterol, that's bad cholesterol, building up in the arteries. And as this bad cholesterol continues to accumulate, a person's coronary arteries begin to narrow, therefore inhibiting blood flow. Now, as an acupuncturist, coronary artery disease is usually a combination of, let's say, a deficiency and an excess, where the root of it all is usually a deficiency of the spleen, functions of the spleen, heart, and kidneys. And its manifestations are generally tied to an excess of blood stasis, congealed cold, chi stagnation, and or phlegm accumulation. You see, because congealed cold, right, or chi stagnation, or blood stasis and phlegm accumulation are attributed to inactivity of heart yang and obstruction of the heart vessels, which tends to induce a sudden onset of this like excruciating, throbbing, stabbing, and crushing chest pain. But of all of the deficiencies that would be involved, let's say kidney deficiency would be the primary causal factor, because kidney yang deficiency tends to lead to heart yang deficiency, failing to warm and circulate heart blood. And kidney yin deficiency leads to insufficient heart yin, causing blood to become viscous, and it tends to retard circulation of blood throughout the body. And poor circulation of blood and increased risk of blood stasis directly affect the heart and cause coronary artery disease. That's how it's seen from the perspective of an acupuncturist. But also, let's take a look at diabetes. And this happens when a person's blood sugar levels are like really high, then it beyond the range in which it should be. And this usually happens when a person's body's not making enough insulin, which is the hormone that regulates blood sugar. And high blood sugar could then lead to complications such as high blood pressure and heart disease. And many individuals are unaware of that. And when it comes to diabetes, let's say an acupuncturist understands that this can be as a result of improper diet due to the excessive consumption of foods that are greasy, sweet, or drinking too much alcohol, because then it affects the spleen and stomach. And if you're a regular listener of Acupuncture is My Life podcast, you know by now how important the middle jiao is, which consists of the spleen and stomach, to an acupuncturist, because it's responsible for all qi and blood created after birth. So when you impair the functions of the spleen and stomach, the result is going to be impaired digestive function, which would lead to food stagnation and generate heat. And because heat is drying, it'll injure the yin aspect of the spleen and stomach, as well as the yin aspect of other internal organs. And symptoms of diabetes will become apparent. But many individuals, and I explain this to even a lot of my patients who are diabetic, emotional stress can cause a person to become diabetic to an acupuncturist. Because see, like long-term chronic emotional stress can disturb the flow of qi that flows throughout the body, and stagnant qi would transform into like extreme heat, therefore depleting yin and fluids of the lung and stomach, causing symptoms of diabetes. Overexertion can play a part too. So again, it's important to see an acupuncturist. Now, what else can play a part is high blood pressure, which to many it's hypertension. High blood pressure basically is the force of blood that flows against the artery walls. Now, high blood pressure is one of the more common causes of heart failure. Why? Because it stresses the heck out of your heart. It makes it work like really, really, really hard. And you see, an acupuncturist understands that contributing factors to high blood pressure can be, one, emotional stress, where chronic anger and frustration, which we speak of a lot at acupunctureismylife.tv. Chronic anger and frustration are factors that predispose a person to liver qi stagnation, because a person's liver is responsible for the free flow of qi throughout the entire body. And when the qi of a person's liver becomes stagnant, it turns into extreme heat and it depletes the yin aspect of the liver. And when yin becomes deficient, it can no longer restrain yang. The yang goes up to the head, and there's dizzy spells, red eyes, there's irritability, there's so much that goes along with that. But then an acupuncturist understands that improper diet can cause high blood pressure. Again, eating too much greasy foods, sweet foods, again, injuring the spleen and stomach, which causes the buildup of turbid dampness in the stomach, which tends to further stagnate and transform into heat. And here we go again. The heat disturbing a person's clear orifices. Another contributing factor can be kidney essence deficiency. This can happen as a result of aging, too much sexual activity, and so forth. But see an acupuncturist, they'll explain all of this to you well in detail. But now heart attack is another. Now heart attack usually happens when the heart doesn't get enough oxygen or blood, because the heart muscle requires oxygen. And if it's not getting proper amount of blood flow, the heart muscle will die and it won't be able to come back. Keep that in mind. And usually after a heart attack, an individual's heart usually works at a reduced capacity, which tends to lead to heart failure. And then you have congenital heart defects, which is usually the result of a person's heart not developing properly before birth. Infections can play a part because it's your immune system that tends to fend off or fight off viruses. As a result, it would trigger, let's say, like inflammation throughout the body. But there are like these rare cases where inflammation can damage the heart. And it's not so rare when the inflammation is chronic. And this is what's called myocarditis. And myocarditis tends to lead to left-sided heart failure. Now, infections can also affect the heart more directly, like bacterial infections can cause germs to stick and damage a heart valve, and this is called endocarditis. Again, it's why I say it's seeing acupuncturists. Another can be heart valve disease, because sometimes your heart valve can have a hard time opening and closing. And this can be as a result of severe infection from, let's say, the flu virus that can lead to heart inflammation. Then there's arrhythmias, sleep apnea, metabolic syndrome. Medications can damage the heart muscle. Many individuals aren't aware of that. But age can play a part. You know, as far as being at risk. Factors that can increase your risk can include age, genetics, lifestyle habits like you don't exercise, and I speak of this a lot in Acupuncture's My Life podcast. Drinking too much in the way of alcohol, again, I speak of that a lot. Chronic stress, watch acupuncturesmylife.tv. You know, and there are various stages of heart failure. You know, stage A is like being at a high risk, but you're not presenting with signs yet. Whereas in stage B, your heart will become enlarged and it may not pump blood as well as it once did. In stage C, you'll notice structural problems and there'll be symptoms of heart failure. But stage D is the most severe. And it can present with persistent symptoms even with or after surgery. So, you know, it's important, as I say over and over, to make acupuncture part of your life, because as an acupuncturist, I understand that health is wealth. I understand the wealth is not in an app on your phone or in a mutual fund or retirement fund or the stock market. It's not in a safe. It's not in the bank. I understand wealth is not in your pocket or in your purse. It's not under your mattress. It's not in a shoebox in the closet, nor is the wealth under the doghouse in the backyard. The wealth is in you. And it's important that you understand that. And it's extremely important that you make acupuncture a part of your life. Because acupuncture is my life. What's yours?